Welcome to another episode of our Transformers podcast. Though today we're looking at the continuation of our look at Brainiac from the Superman cartoon series from the 90s. This is one of your hosts, Sean.
Charlie.
And Thomas.
So today we're going to look at a two-part Justice League story called Twilight.
Yeah, so I guess we're gonna have to call this the DC animated universe look at Brainiac.
And then
Just
the other one
covering multiple series.
And then we're going to look at a two-parter from Static Shock, Season 3. Well, the Justice League is Season 2. Yeah, but Static Shock, I know it's the DC animated universe, but I know it was on another network. Wasn't it on UPN or something? I remember it was on somewhere different.
Static Shock?
Like ABC.
Yes.
Static Shock? Well, I guess it depends on what region you are, but it aired on WB.
Oh, WB. Okay.
Oh,
it did? All right.
okay.
Then yeah, because the WB is where Batman
All the
Superman
DC
came
stuff
on.
was. Yeah.
But remember, Batman was originally on Fox Kids.
Oh yeah.
The first 3 seasons.
Oh yeah. Those are good times.
Technically Batman and Robin, or hold on, the new God. Okay, it was really called The Adventures of Batman and Robin, but they, retconned that to never exist now when it comes out on DVDs and stuff. They're just like, yeah, we'll just keep it simple. The first episode we're looking at is 2 parts about Brainiac coming back to life again, but actually explaining how he's able to come back to life again for the first time. Darkseid is a DC comic villain who is pretty much the giant evil of DC Comics, and here he is in his animated form. There's actually 2 Superman episodes before this, in his Superman's own series before Justice League, that explain why Superman hates this guy so much. Not only did he try to take over Earth and kill his cop friend, he also brainwashed Superman and turned him into a supervillain and had him destroy Metropolis and lots of the Earth in the very last episode of Superman's series. So there's a reason that Superman just really hates Darkseid and why he seems to act out of character when this series, where all these episodes are going on.
Yeah, okay, that does give me a better idea of why was he so, I don't know, strong-minded about going after Darkseid. And I figured there must have been some kind of reason. I was like, okay, there's probably something that happened that I'm just some context that's missing.
I think it's ridiculous that Superman is just so emotionally bound to all of these villains that no one else is. Like Brainiac, is like responsible for his father's death too. So it's like,
oh yeah,
why him? Why Superman?
What's funny is, so basically Darkseid, his forces are kind of, less than they were because he made a stupid decision that got him in a fight that he wasn't prepared for. Now his army's down, and then Brainiac shows up. So Darkseid's like, oh, hey, man, you should totally come to my planet and help me fight Brainiac because, he's Kryptonian. He's going to destroy other planets. And Superman's just like, he'll annihilate your planet. And then just pauses for a second and goes, good. And everyone around him just like stares at him in shock and disbelief. Like, the hell? This is Superman?
Yeah, that was like the first thing I noticed with this episode. I was like, oh, wow, that's Superman's just going to leave them to their fate. I was wondering if is this a show specific thing? Because I don't think comic book Superman or even the movie Superman would act like that.
In the first season of Justice League, Darkseid didn't show up. So this is like the first time he's seen him since being mind controlled by him in his own show. Because even though he broke free of the mind control, he didn't actually defeat Darkseid. All he did was go to his planet and fight him and beat him up. But his people were like, oh man, Darkseid, we're going to, heal you up. And he's just like, see all these people, they love me. I'm their god to them. So what did you really accomplish here, basically? All you did was kind of beat me up, and that was it. You didn't really solve anything.
Oh yeah, that does sound familiar. Yeah, I remember that.
And it sucks because of that episode, that builds up into what will be like, I think, the whole season tone of Justice League Unlimited 1 and 2, because they'll always harken back to that, like, man, what do we need to do, U.S. government, whenever Superman goes crazy again? I know, we'll make our own superheroes and be dicks to the entire universe and people that have saved our lives all the time. It all starts from that episode of nobody trusting Superman. But anyway, Brainiac is in this show. Oh yeah, Darkseid killed somebody. He killed one of his minions. Or I was like, oh, maybe he sent them to another dimension, but we don't get any kind of, bad dub stating that. But no, he dead. But it's okay because he's an alien. And as long as it's not human, you can kill them on a cartoon.
Has he really not killed anybody else? Any humans?
He killed... Actually, no, in Superman, he actually killed that cop friend of Superman's with his beams. He actually literally dies on screen, too. And I think they show it. Like, they were actually somehow able to get away with it. Him just being shot by the beams and teleporting away, but, him being basically dead, turned to dust. Before we get to Darkseid real quick, what did you guys think of New Genesis when you see that area? Like the flying fortress area?
Final Fantasy, the golden, not the golden saucer, but whatever the city on the plate is, or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. Batman says he's going to need a longer grapple.
What I thought was weird is, the first thing they do is they meet somebody and he slaps Wonder Woman on the ass. They do not show it, but it is heavily implied because he comes right behind her, right beside her, and you hear a smack, and she's like, hey, and chases after him. I'm like, oh, okay. So not only are these people a bunch of dicks, they literally call the people on their planet that aren't on their flying fortress bugs. And later in the second episode, Wonder Woman actually asks about those people down there, and Orion, the guy who wears red and has the helmet, actually says, oh, they're not important. They're just bugs. I'm like, why do we care about your planet now if all you people are like this? Think you're high and mighty and above everybody.
Yeah, so I would like to know more about New Genesis, and I guess when I was looking into it a little bit, trying to figure out like who are these extra characters. So what is there? Light Ray is the guy you were describing, who's
he's one of the Ninja Turtles
on the butt. Rob Paulson, the voice actor is Rob Paulson, and then the High Father. What's his deal? Orion, all that. So I looked into it. So they're basically gods. They're called the new gods, like that whole everybody who lives up there. But I am kind of curious about that whole society. Like, are they all gods, and do they all just have crazy powers and stuff like that? Some of the behavior that we're seeing from Light Ray and Orion, I'm wondering if that's just, hopefully that's just character specific.
And the whole time I'm like, why are we seeing them like this? Because we're not really going to care about what happens to them. I guess they tried to make up for that at the end, but it doesn't really work. Is this supposed to continue into a future two-parter where they go back to New Genesis? Or is there supposed to be some spin-off show with the new gods? Because it kind of seems like a lot of setup for that to not do anything with it.
Oh, yeah, with the kids and stuff.
Do you hear the details of the treaty? Now, this made me laugh. Okay, I have a ton of stupid moments from the show, but this was the topper. Okay, so apparently they said Darkseid and New Genesis actually exchanged sons in the peace treaty. I don't know if you heard that. Yeah,
that actually is in the first Darkseid episode on Superman.
So Ryan is actually supposed to be Darkseid's son, though he looks like he is definitely New Genesis' son. And the smelly-looking Wolfman with the Darkseid is actually belongs to New Genesis.
Yes.
No.
And
Steppenwolf,
he has a similar nose, so
no,
that's
the
totally his
Wolf
son. Come on.
Steppenwolf is Orion's.
No, not Steppenwolf, but
the
the other.
Yeah, the wolf guy from the very
calls
beginning.
Him father.
Yeah, who's always carrying that mace stick around and organizing the tanks.
that's Darkseid's regular son. So
that's
it is his son. Okay, that looks like his son.
No, that's not Darkseid's regular son. That's his adopted son. So that's the New Genesis.
His adopted son.
So that's
his
what I
adopted
thought.
son is Miracle Man.
No,
so
not
it doesn't
according
make
to
any
the cartoon. Not according to the
cartoon.
cartoon.
It doesn't make any sense because he actually, firstly, the Wolfman kind of looks like Darkseid. He's got like the same nose, and then
he's
the other guy that looks like New Genesis. Maybe they just looked at their sons and just were like, as part of this treaty, we should swap sons because this doesn't look right. So this is ridiculous. We've got the wrong sons here.
Yeah, I think they just made him. I think they made him Calabac in the cartoon because he does not have any other children throughout the entire Justice League and Superman shows. Like the only people I ever see are Orion and Big Barda, I think, and then that's it. I don't know, but I guess one last thing in New Genesis. I don't remember if it's this episode or the next one, but Highfather is like talking to some kids. Charlie, this is hilarious. He says, "Patience, child," because all these kids are around these trees, and one of them can't get the tree to grow. And so he's just like, "Oh, patience, child." And then later he just points his stick at the tree and makes it grow by magic, almost as if to say, "Oh, wait, never mind. I'll just do it for you so you don't learn anything." And I'm like, all right, maybe this is why you're so privileged. You just let people do everything for you and don't learn them to fend for themselves. So, spoiler, New Genesis blows up, and they all have to evacuate to the land below where all the bugs live. And I'm just like, that kid's not going to survive because she was not told how to grow plants or survive anywhere and just had it done for her by Highfather. So basically the whole episode this first part just involves them fighting Darkseid minions for a while Batman and Wonder Woman try to go to New Genesis and then get...
They were fighting Brainiac stuff. Because Brainiac was, at this point, Brainiac was basically doing his data drain thing, which I don't know, just seemed kind of weird. You got to drill into their planet.
He was doing some Galactus stuff on this episode. He's like, let me make some giant, large things that I haven't used before. They basically team up with Darkseid, take him down, and then give chase to him. But then after they give chase, most of the Justice League is captured by an asteroid that they thought Brainiac was fleeing to, only to reveal it's a giant supervillain face fortress on an asteroid. Yeah. I was like, my last note on this episode is, hey, this robot has to have an ego after seeing that. We don't learn anything about Brainiac in this episode. He's just mindless robot doing his own thing, at least in part one.
As a viewer, this Brainiac seems more like the Brainiac that I'm familiar with compared to the animated series, Batman, Superman stuff. Because this Brainiac seems way more capable. He can defend himself a lot better. He's not as easily defeated. Like, he seems more like a planet level threat than he did in, the previous episodes where Batman or Superman can just take him out without even trying, and he just tries to run away immediately.
Yeah.
Biased by the other stuff, but I feel like he's just still as equally weak because he had to make a hole in his own force field to fire at Superman with the whatever he was firing him at with the little static tractor beam or something.
Yeah.
But
so you're saying he's a god that, and we're wondering, can he create a rock so big that even he can't lift it?
Yeah. But it's like he doesn't even have a really good defense mechanism that works with his own powers. You're supposed to be able to just shoot through it, and somebody has to figure out how to make a hole in your force field. You don't make a hole and then shoot through it.
Oh, so I did have one last note for New Genesis. They have apparently cloth mask technology that allows cloth that you wrap around your face or mask that you wear on your face to move with your mouth. That's so high tech, right? Like the bug guy.
Well, I mean, that sounds like modern day technology because we have the Question. He has that mask.
Yeah, but his mouth doesn't move.
Okay, okay, I guess that's true.
Like it opened a hole while he was talking, then closed again after he was done talking. I think Rob Paulson was also the minion at the beginning while on Steppenwolf's ship.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, but also, if you guys don't notice from last time, there's a new Superman voice actor in Justice League as opposed to the Superman from Superman the Animated Series.
I don't. No, I didn't notice that. Who is it?
It's just a different person than the one who voiced the original Superman the Animated Series.
Okay, so George Newbern is the voice actor in Justice League.
Okay. I actually watched the commentary for the second episode, but I didn't really have anything interesting. Other than they had to explain to him a lot why he was acting so different compared to first season Justice League. The second episode begins, and we got Superman, Green Lantern, and Hawkgirl take out Brainiac pretty easily. And my note actually says, Thomas, You always say Brainiac is not a threat because he gets beaten easily by Superman, but now he has a mega asteroid fortress, and then he immediately loses to 3 superheroes a little too quickly. I was like, is he losing on purpose? And then all of a sudden you see all these doors open and like 40 Brainiacs come out. So he has all these Brainiac bodies to fight them.
Which he does, and yes, that original did just go down pretty easily, but these extra bots still also go down pretty easily.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I guess makes sense because these guys are they're pretty strong too. I mean, they're not Superman, but they are also very capable.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. With this, I do get the vibe that it seems like when Brainiac is just by himself, he's a little bit more careful and not just throws himself just to get immediately smacked down. But when he has control of a bunch of drones or multiple copies of himself, then he's just like, let's just swarm no matter what.
So Darkseid appears and immediately blasts Superman unconscious with his Omega beams. Basically, Brainiac knew he couldn't defeat Superman and actually went there to Darkseid for help because he's like, yeah, I've failed too many times. I'm going to get help and totally get this trustworthy guy to help me out. Like they have some kind of secret plan where Brainiac's going to, take Superman, and in exchange, he won't kill Darkseid's planet. We actually see after the battle, Thomas, like that one Brainiac he's controlling, he plugs into the computer and basically transfers what I guess would be the consciousness of himself into the computer because he doesn't need the body at the time. So he can just be the computer of his asteroid at that moment.
Right, yeah. So that's why it just seems like the drones are just whatever. As long as he is safely stored or replicated in something else, he doesn't really care.
And then, of course, in true supervillain team-up fashion, Darkseid somehow has a computer thing that he puts on Brainiac's computer and now takes over Brainiac. And it's just like, you're mine to command now, and I'll use you to conquer the universe.
That was kind of weird. I was confused at first. I was like, Brainiac's supposed to be Brainiac. How was he just... how was Darkseid able to take over and overwhelm him that easily with just sticking a box on him? But then I looked into it, and I guess what Darkseid used was a mother box. And looking into the mother boxes, they are very capable. So that it is very convenient. But that's the teleporting. That's just one of the many things they can do.
So Charlie, in this episode, unfortunately, Brainiac doesn't become the main villain from this point on. This is purely Darkseid's story.
Of course, this is so ridiculous. It's like first it starts off with Darkseid, and then for no reason Brainiac comes in. For some reason, this is all about setting up Superman. Like Superman takes the fall. He takes one for the team in this episode. 2 episodes. It's funny because it's like first it seemed like he was totally set up by Darkseid because Darkseid comes and he asks the Justice League for help with his world. And the funny thing is, the Justice Leaguers are like all against Superman. They're like, hey, you shouldn't be so mean to Darkseid. People are dying on his planet. And Batman accuses him of feeling sorry for himself. And he starts calling out all the horrible things Darkseid had done to Superman and gotten away with. Like he was trying to say, hey, you're a wuss. Go just do it anyway. And
I didn't like that. He's like, get over your mental problems from being mind controlled. I'm like, I don't think that would work that easily.
And then he goes to like actually attack Brainiac, and Brainiac makes the hole in the in the force field. Then Darkseid shows up and he's like, Superman did all the work for me. And then he like shoots through and like blasts a hole. But then he is secretly plotting to he blasts a hole in Brainiac, yet he's secretly plotting with Brainiac to give him Superman in exchange for leaving him alone, which is like, what the heck? Why Superman?
And he wants Brainiac to destroy his own forces to make it believable. But in the second episode, they're fighting, and basically they're all about to evacuate after defeating all the Brainiacs and possibly Darkseid. And Superman's just like, yeah, I'm going back to make sure that he stays with this explosion and effing dies. Because
I would too.
so Superman just vanishes, and he's like trash talking him. It's like, you're not leaving until you're a greasy smear against this wall or on my hands or something. He's like, this is your final whatever. and they just start fighting all over. And Superman has finally defeated Darkseid when Batman comes back. Superman's like, "Get the F out of here," and shoves him against the wall and actually injures Batman's shoulder. And Batman jumps on him and teleports him away with a mother box. And Darkseid just kind of smiles and goes, "Loser." And then the entire space station Brainiac explodes, killing all the Brainiacs and Darkseid for good.
Yay.
Possibly. Well, but they actually said on the commentary that this was meant to be Darkseid's final episode.
Okay,
They
but not
didn't
Brainiac's
intend-
final episode, as we know, because he'll show up in the future again.
Yeah,
So,
they didn't plan to bring him back, but that's like a fake out for another time. Let's get to the actual personality of Brainiac. He actually, well, first the fun stuff. Brainiac's a robot. He doesn't need to sit down, but he still sits down and made a whole throne for himself in a massive room that is supposed to look intimidating to anybody that shows up there. He creates a throne for himself, so I guess he considers himself a ruler over living creatures or rules over their lives, whatever. It's just part of his personality quirk. And
Wow.
and again, making a dramatic entrance on purpose, which is hilarious, coming up with all the smoke out of his chair. "I am Brainiac. I am risen. You should all terrify and cower before me." I just like, did he know they were coming? Like, it seems like he made this a long time ago, just for anyone he decided to, mess with.
Well, I mean, he was stewing the whole time. He was like, "I have to defeat Superman. How can I do it?" So he probably came up with that as part of his plan too.
Well, now it seems he didn't want to succeed in killing Superman because he wants Superman because Superman is the last Kryptonian. Brainiac actually mentions the Darkseid. "I have reached the end point of my evolution. I can evolve no further. So I'm going to become basically an organic being or a techno-organic being and evolve further." He doesn't explain anything else. You don't know if he's going to possess Superman's body or if he's going to just take DNA and make himself a organic body or a techno-organic body. It's not explained other than that he needs Superman's body and he puts him on some chair to like electrocute him all the time. But all we know is he's trying to evolve further beyond his current programming. And I was like, okay, that is a cool idea. And then it's not explored anymore because Darkseid becomes the main villain. Like, I was hoping that there would be some kind of thing where Brainiac could be like, "I would rather die than be controlled," and explodes the whole ship on his own instead of it being overloaded. Because then maybe, I don't know, maybe when Batman's on the computer, he could be like, that's kind of like human kind of thinking or something. So it just showed that maybe Brainiac is already slightly evolved and he doesn't realize it. But they didn't go that route. Instead, they're like, "Ha, your planet's taken over by Darkseid." And then Brainiac just explodes in the end with him. Because at one point, Brainiac's like, it's pretty funny. He actually says, "I do not want to fight you." Is that what it is? What is it? "Oh, I have no desire to save you, but I am compelled to obey."
Yes, that was funny.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering if he had killed Superman in the past, what would have happened if he had reached this point and he's like, "Oh God, I need to evolve by becoming..." Oh, that's what makes me think that he's got more personality, because he doesn't want just any organic being. He wants an organic being from Krypton because that's where he came from. He actually identifies himself as Kryptonian, which is actually...
No, he says it needed to be one
No,
from
it doesn't need to be. He just wants to be Kryptonian because that's where he came from. It feels more like like an identity thing. Like he identifies himself as a Kryptonian, so that's what he wants to be when he evolves.
I mean, he is Kryptonian, so...
Yeah, but in his mind, he wants to be an organic Kryptonian, not just a random human or Thangarian or Martian Manhunterian, whatever that guy is. Things are called. I don't remember what Martian Manhunter's race is called. But I just imagine him being in anguish. "Oh my God, I can't evolve anymore because I killed all the Kryptonians in my past." But luckily, Brainiac does have a final storyline where he is the main villain. So,
I don't understand why they wrote the episodes like this.
but just to have him be taken over, even though they set him up to be this big threat, this massive shield.
Why they write two villains into the plot and like alternate them? I don't get that at all. Oh man.
Mm-hmm.
And why so hard on Superman? That was terrible. I feel so bad for him.
Yeah.
It's getting electrocuted constantly in both of these episodes.
Yeah.
He took one for the team, that's for sure.
hmm Oh yeah, he's offered to join Brainiac, and Superman's just like, go to, and before he can curse, Brainiac says, I anticipated as much, or something. He's like angry throughout the whole episode, because everything is just these two people that pissed him off all the time. But another thing is, Brainiac doesn't consider himself a living being unless he becomes organic. He actually says, I will finally be a living being. I'm like, oh, you don't consider yourself alive yet. Huh. Okay.
Should he? I mean, he's just programming.
To be.
Yeah, and you do see that programming because Darkseid takes him over. So it's just interesting. Despite the fact that Brainiac isn't the main character, the main villain, he does show a lot of his personality and what he wants this episode, which is different than it's been previously, which is not the case in Static Shock.
Sean, who you think is the main character in this these two vignettes here?
It's really Superman and Hawk Girl. They really because they really tried to set up. Yeah. They start with her and her like being all depressed about the not being at home and all that, and then
True, but
does she get
they
to go
do
home
nothing with
part?
it. They do nothing with it. They do that part at the beginning, like I'm all by myself, like woe is me. Then there's just a random scene where they're flying through Brainiac's ship and they see all the planets he's taken over. And they mention that stuff again, and she's like, I don't have time for this right now.
Yeah,
and I don't even know if there's another
foreshadowing.
scene after
Well,
that.
that's foreshadowing because she's lying to the Justice League. She doesn't want to look for her planet because she's actually an undercover alien agent sent to conquer Earth by her people.
But yeah, they don't really do any. Yeah, they just mention that. They just mention those 2 points. There's those 2 scenes. And
Well,
there's
apparently
nothing.
the writers knew that, so they tried to write that scene on purpose to make it look like she was just been like, oh yeah, totally, we don't have time to look for that when, But yeah.
Yeah, that's what I liked about Justice League. There are most of the episodes of each episode is, pretty self-contained.
Mm-hmm.
But there's always just this continuity that always goes through all the episodes. So
I think every episode of Justice League 1 and 2, seasons 1 and 2 are 2-parters.
Oh, I don't know. That I don't know. But I mean, it makes sense.
But like there's occasionally one-offs, but Justice League Unlimited is the show that has one-shot episodes except for the season finales. Charlie, had you seen Justice League yet? Is this your first time watching Justice League?
I think I knew of it existing, but I don't think I was ever interested in it. I kind of looked up the characters because I was like, I've never understood what they actually do. Like I was trying to figure out what the Green Lantern's powers actually are, and apparently he's semi-invulnerable, capable of projecting hard light constructions, flight, and utilizing various other abilities through a power ring that he possesses. And he could do pretty much anything and it says it's only limited by his imagination.
Yeah.
So
that's why
I couldn't understand what he's doing with the green power coming out.
Anything that comes out of the ring that he can make, like he can make a giant drill or a giant bubble to protect, from lasers and stuff. Or the old Green Lantern's like, here's a giant fist. Here's a giant slide when we need to go out of the building, or something like that.
Oh God, that's just such a dumb power. I would like to have that power, but I just don't see it as very interesting because it's just not very.
He can make a giant gun out of it with a
general.
giant bullet that shoots things and people. He's done that too. I'm not joking. I don't know if he did it on the cartoon, but.
Then Hawk Girl is like extra boring because all she really does is like fly and use like archaic weaponry. That's all she does.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. She's a spiked mace, which is like totally cartoon for kids approved weapon.
Yeah, but that's so boring.
How is everyone she hits not bleeding to death? But yeah, I assume. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, why is Batman even there? Does Bruce Wayne have like a ton of like extra time to do this? Be an executive and be Batman of Gotham, and he's part of the Justice League at the same time.
Well, I remember Justice League came on after the 5th season of Batman and the 3rd season of Superman ended at the same time, and Justice League came out the next year as a replacement show that followed all these characters. And
so they all
Static
quit their
Shock
day jobs.
What's that?
I said, did they all quit their day jobs to become part of the Justice League?
So with the Justice League characters, especially ones that we're seeing with these episodes, they are pretty much there full time. They don't have day jobs. I mean, they're just world protectors essentially. But in Justice League Unlimited, that is actually part of the setup of that show, is that they need more help in how we're going to make this work, and they basically turn it into just like a job. It's like corporate people have schedules. They come and do like a tour of duty with the Justice League, and then they're free to go back and do their own work. You know, they get called up and like, we need you here, we need you here. So they're
Okay.
So there they kind of do that. But Batman in particular, with him in particular, like Sean said, after 5 seasons, there's so many extra characters there that he doesn't need to be there full time anyway. And because he's Bruce Wayne, he can just be like, I'm gonna go on hiatus.
Well, yeah. Well, that's like, Unlimited focuses on a lot more minor characters that have never even really shown up in a cartoon before until this time period.
Which I think is pretty cool, because you get to learn about all these different characters, all these different powers and stuff. And their relationship.
Did you watch this when it came out, Thomas? Because I didn't watch this till they came out on DVD around 2004, 5, 6. Because I was just buying the DVDs. Like, I collected the Batman and Superman DVDs, having never watched Superman but watching Batman. But then when Justice League came out, I just decided to buy those and watch them too. Even though I was not ever a DC Comics fan after that point, except for Tim Drake Robin is the only thing I follow usually. And then all of a sudden, I'm watching all these Justice League things, and then Justice League Unlimited and Batman Beyond and all that, and just buying the DVDs and watching those while I'm going to grad school, because they just release a new one every 3 months until everything is released back in that time period. And I don't remember when they originally aired. I think they aired, I don't remember if they're a late 90s show or an early 2000s show.
You talking about Justice League?
Yeah, Justice League. Sorry.
It came out in 2001.
Oh, okay.
2001 to 2004.
I was starting college when that happened.
I was watching a lot of anime at that time.
Yeah.
I'd abandoned like cartoons.
I was catching random episodes every now and then. I didn't watch it religiously back then, but I was aware of it. I did like it. I knew I liked it. I was confused when the switch happened to Unlimited, and I'm like, who are all these extras? What happened to the show? I didn't watch much Unlimited on TV, but then after the fact, that's when I caught up with everything. So I'm pretty sure I've seen almost every episode. There's probably some stragglers I might have missed.
A few years ago, Batman was released on Blu-ray, and then the next year they released all of Batman Beyond, and then after that, the next year they released all of Superman on Blu-ray. So everyone thinks Justice League is going to come out 2022, and instead they release The Batman, all 5 seasons on Blu-ray, and didn't bother to release a complete set of Justice League or Justice League Unlimited. So everyone's hoping that in 2023 we'll get a collection of all 4 seasons of Justice League as a Blu-ray collection. At least I'm hoping anyway, because I had to go get my DVDs to watch this.
Yeah, it's probably because I don't know. Maybe the Batman stuff was selling better.
I think Batman stuff always sells better.
I kind of talked about this before, where I watch all of the Batman stuff on TV. Like, I love the Batman stuff, and I didn't care much for the Superman stuff. But when Justice League came around, I watched that, even though there was a lot of Batman or Superman in it. But I was watching it because I like Batman, and I liked the other characters too. Like, I really like Hawkgirl as well. But yeah, I wonder if that's why, is maybe the Batman people are buying up all this stuff. They're capitalizing on the live action DC movies.
Yeah, the funny thing was the romances that happened, the 2 major romances that are in the Justice League show that aren't in the comics, they just happened naturally as a result of writing the episodes, which is Green Lantern and Hawkgirl dating before they find out that she's a plant there to invade Earth for her planet. And then the other, of course, is the unexpected relationship that Batman and Wonder Woman have with each other, where Batman clearly has feelings for Wonder Woman and never expresses them to her, like, ever. And he never will, because we see future Batman and Batman Beyond old and alone.
Well, maybe they did.
Yeah, that's right.
It fell apart.
Because there's a lot of things where he's just like clearly in love with her, and you don't know if she is, but he's never willing to take that step. Like, I remember there's one time travel episode where Batman is eating lunch with Green Lantern on the Watchtower, and he's just like talking about his relationship, and then Green Lantern's just like, well, what about you and Diana? And he just like is a little surprised, being talked to like that. And Batman's just like, Diana is an acceptable colleague. She is a good and strong colleague, and just maybe fumbling over himself to not answer the question. Actually, a sad romance because nothing ever comes of it. Because Batman just refuses to be happy, like ever. His mission is his only goal and nothing else. But anyway, so what did you think of Brainiac in these 2 episodes? Each of you guys, like now that you know his full motivations and everything.
Still weak.
Yeah. You didn't like his fact that he wanted to evolve into an organic, techno-organic being because he wants to evolve further and be a living creature.
I don't know why you'd want to be a living creature. Living creatures have pain.
The first thing he'd have to do is learn he has to eat and then go to the bathroom. And he'd be like, what have I done? Thomas, like, did you like the fact that it was different?
Well, different in that he was more threatening, more capable, sure.
Okay.
But ultimately, I don't know. He doesn't really have a lot of layers to his plan, and that's definitely shown here as well. I got 2 things that I think are pretty dumb.
Okay.
All right, so at the end of the 2nd episode, after Batman pulls Superman through the mother box portal, Superman goes up to Batman and says, "You're not always right," to Batman. I'm like, why? What is this coming from? Because like Superman, and especially his fans, always talk. They always are like, Superman always wants to do the right thing. What he believes is always going to be for the greater good, kind of thing. I'm like, what place does Superman have to tell somebody else that what you think is not always the best choice when he always does that himself?
Oh God, that just sounds awful.
Once
I was so embarrassed.
I was like,
in this
episode.
episode.
I was like, this is so dumb. Why is he saying that to him?
Yeah, it's like he didn't, because usually in a story, a character has a character arc, and Superman didn't have that arc. He stayed focused on trying to kill Darkseid, and Batman prevented him from staying there to make sure Darkseid died. So
maybe
he
Superman
seemed
thought
extra,
he was right.
like, couldn't protect himself. He had no comebacks. He was immature. It sounded like he was hurt by Batman. He just needed to.
Yeah, he's like, I would have survived this explosion.
Venting.
Batman, just leave me.
The other dumb thing, which we don't have to belabor because he wasn't a real, he was just a minor character. The High Father, he couldn't find his people of New Genesis. I'm like, he has all this crazy power. He has that staff that lets him have a connection with the source, that lets him do all kinds of crazy stuff. The mother box, we already saw earlier in that episode that Orion could use it to detect Darkseid. How could they not figure out where their people were? Inside of a cave. They weren't shielded or in some kind of contraption that was blocking their being.
Maybe it was all the explosion of the city from blocking out their sensors. Sure.
It's all magic. He has this god powers.
And you never see any of his powers other than that he can make plants grow. That's it. That's all you see in the entire episode. But yeah, I don't know if we ever see these guys again. Like any of these new Genesis gods. Yeah, we just saw Big Barda, I think, in Superman, and that's it. I don't think we ever see any of them ever again. I think Orion showed up in one of the Darkseid episodes too.
Another silly moment in the show. Whenever New Genesis shows up, he like blows up some stuff on Darkseid's planet. I noticed that it was all like 20th century military equipment. It was all like tanks and just regular military equipment.
But magical military equipment.
Like in a fiery planet full of slave animal men. It just didn't make any sense. But maybe he stole them all from Earth to because his primitive animal men who were working via slave labor were not able to make technology or something. It just looked like regular Earth junk. I'm like, why would anybody even want that?
You don't understand. It's a tank with 2 cannons instead of 1.
Yeah, right. Their spaceships kind of look like one looked like ballistic missile shooting at a a tank at the beginning. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, that's funny. So on to Static Shock. Have any of you guys ever seen Static Shock before?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. I knew of Static Shock from the comic because there was a crossover back in the day between Milestone Comics and the Superman comics. Because then DC Comics eventually bought Milestone Comics and then proceeded to do nothing with the characters. So most of them, except for Static Shock, have kind of faded out of existence. But somehow, which is interesting, that I like when I first saw Static Shock getting a TV show, I was like, oh, DC actually is using these characters again. Oh yeah, it came out in the year 2000. So it actually came out the year before Justice League. Okay.
I think it was out before then because I remember watching that. I feel like I watched that in high school.
No, it says
Maybe
2000.
the DVDs came out.
2000. No,
later.
It says 2000 to 2004. It's when the show was on the
I
air.
stopped watching cartoons by then. Like in high school, I never watched like TV cartoons. So I just remember Static Shock being something like, oh man, I used to watch that with some other stuff that used to come on. Like, it seemed like it used to come on with Darkwing Duck and things like that.
Oh no, it was much later than that.
Really? I just don't remember. Couldn't have watched it in college. I just don't feel like that was around, or I cared about it when I was in college.
And maybe you watched it a little later. I didn't watch Static Shock at all until my wife and I watched it 5 years ago because they finally released it on DVD 7 years ago for the very first time. They would just release one a year, so I would just buy one every year after the holidays, and like every yearly, my wife and I would just spend 2 weeks watching all of it and then waiting until the next DVD because it was kind of interesting to watch. Having watched all of the Justice League, Batman, Superman stuff, but never have watched this one.
Absolutely have no idea. If this came out in 2000, when did I have time to watch this? I'm just like, I wasn't even watching cartoons, like Saturday cartoons anymore, especially because they had like that one Saturday morning crap on.
You were watching it while you were waiting in the
ABC?
doctor's office.
No way, but I've seen most of the episodes. That's the weird thing about it. I swear this is 90s. I don't know. I feel like Wikipedia is wrong.
Wikipedia.
Like I feel like I watched this in high school, like late high school. Sometime.
Maybe you read the comics or something.
Yeah. I actually like
That's so weird.
this show. It has 4 seasons, but they're half seasons. There are only 13 episodes in each season instead of 26. So it's not as long of a show as you would think. But I do remember it was an interesting show because then you're seeing like a teenager, but it's different than Batman Beyond, which was also kind of similar concept for the DCU, but only in the future. So in this episode, they're like, Static, we need your help as a battery. So he's like, this is your cool adventure. You get to stand here and shoot your electricity into some things and stop the Watchtower. At this point, season 3 and 4 of Static Shock, his best friend is also a superhero too with him called, I don't remember. What is his superhero name?
Oh, you want to know his superhero name?
Yeah, what is the Static Shock sidekick's superhero name? Not Backpack, that's for sure, but he has a giant techie backpack for doing stuff. Wow, I don't remember what his superhero name is. But anyway, he becomes a superhero because he realizes that he's super intelligent, and that's what superpower he has from the explosion that caused all the superheroes and supervillains in Static Shock's cartoon. But also kind of makes sense why Brainiac can take him over later if his mind is like a computer, right?
Well, he's using a thing, right? He's using some kind of like implant on these people.
No, I'm talking about part 1.
He has the implant.
He doesn't use that in part 1. That's part 2.
Maybe they don't show it explicitly, but then once he gets out of bed in the very beginning of part 2, he just has the implant on the back of his neck.
Yeah, it's
okay.
It happened at the very end of the previous episode.
Oh, okay.
On the previous thing, basically that little robot backpack attacked him, but you don't see what happens. It just like blacks out. And then when he wakes up in the next episode, there's something on his neck and he's weird.
Yeah, but this is part 2. Let's go back to part 1 for a minute. It was interesting though how they make some comedy because Mr. Backpack, I don't know what his name is about to touch the computers on the Watchtower, and Hawkgirl's like, hey, you said you'd be in the corner, go sit in the corner. So he actually is sitting on a chair in the corner. So he doesn't touch anything. And then when they're about to leave, Martian Manhunter just looks at him and goes, as long as they don't touch anything. Like the way he delivers it is like, don't touch anything, guys. I'm going to keep you in charge.
I'm really angry about how they ended up there in the first place. I thought the Justice League was there to ask for their help, but basically the help they needed was to have a kid charge their spaceship for them for pretty much for free. Like they paid him in pizza.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is it does lead to them actually being involved in a situation, though, where they're on the Watchtower and they have to fight Brainiac inside while the Justice League has to fight Brainiac, who's attacking everybody outside. And apparently they didn't get the voice actor for Brainiac for the Static Shock show, even though they later got him back for the Justice League Unlimited show. So I don't know why it's a different voice actor for this one.
Batman, did you hear the Batman voice on that? Awful. It just...
It
was
Kevin
so nasal.
Conroy.
That was not. That couldn't have been. Listen to
Yeah.
it. It's compared to the other one. It's maybe a bad recording or something, but this voice is really high pitched, nasal. Maybe they took another recording that was already done and just put some Batman stock voice in there or something. But yeah, that totally was not Batman.
It's funny because Static Shock has met Batman and Robin in a previous episode and Green Lantern in a previous episode. Because I remember he got along with Robin and Batman was always judging him.
Wow.
He's wanting to get Batman's approval. I think he may have shown up. He might have just been with Batman one episode and then Batman and Robin in a second episode. They might have been two separate episodes. I think I remember Robin being like, "Hey, that's a compliment," because Batman actually like smiles or gives him a thumbs up, like something he never does. Or something like that.
I noticed that Static takes a jab at the Green Lantern in one of the scenes. He just makes it like a little snide comment, like, "Yeah, you don't look good in green either." Like, I was like, "Where did that come from?" Some animosity.
The plan of Brainiac is exactly the same in the first episode as he's previously been. He just announces to Static, "I'm going to take the Earth's knowledge, and then blow up the planet, and that's my plan." This is original Brainiac, not like I need to evolve Brainiac or any kind of different version of him. It's just the same Brainiac we've seen previously. His motivations are the same. Question for you guys. Do firewalls look like jigsaw puzzle pieces around a circle? The circle representing computer drives, I guess, or whatever the heck that is. Are computer cores aren't a real thing, right? In real computers.
We're
Let me
talking
check
about
the definitive source. I'm gonna
network diagram. What a firewall looks like.
What is it?
No, he's being sarcastic.
No, I'm just like, but yeah.
I was gonna check. I'm gonna check the definitive source. The Sneakers, the movie.
Okay, because firewalls aren't like, they're always representative as being like a circle around another circle, and that middle circle is the core of the computer or the directives of the computer that come from out of that or something. I don't know. It's never explained. They just try to visualize computer stuff for kids.
And I'm gonna tell you that this one is just another poor representation, just like every other portrayal and everything.
I had one question though. How did Green Lantern use his ring to increase an audio and visual transmission on a TV? I don't think his powers work that way.
Yeah, I was like, okay, that's the thing you can do now.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, his ring is, I mean, he can transfer battery power essentially. So maybe he powered it up, the transmission or something.
Yeah.
The receiver.
And also what's weird is Static isn't the hero of this show. He doesn't defeat Brainiac. It's his sidekick that defeats Brainiac by downloading 1 million songs at once or something into Brainiac's
Oh yeah,
systems.
I remember that.
And I was like, wait.
Made him run out of space.
A denial of service attack.
Yeah, at first I thought that instead of downloading one music file then another, he was actually opening 1 million tabs to download it 1 million times, because having so many tabs running is what would slow you down. But no, Brainiac literally says he's out of memory already. So I'm guessing that did happen, and they just all went over there. And it's like the Digimon ending where they stop in the second movie the bad guy by having all the kids of the world send multiple emails toward the bad guy to slow him down, so the Digimon can actually move at speed with him and kill him. Yeah, that's all I had on the first episode. They beat Brainiac with music and get to fight with the Justice League. The end. And you think the episode is over until That ending scene that you mentioned where Brainiac escaped in his backpack and takes over his body. And that is where my questions come in. Is Brainiac taking over Gear's body? And then I realized, oh yeah, we later see him with mechanical features on his face, but then when he's actually in Brainiac's body that he built, that stuff is gone. But I was confused because I said, isn't this what he wanted to do in Justice League? He wanted to get Superman's body to use his DNA. So it's almost kind of funny that he wanted to become organic or techno-organic. And here he literally takes Gear's body to make him a suit that Gear can fit inside of. His superhero name is Gears, by the way. And so he fits inside a Brainiac. So then Brainiac has a human inside of him. Kind of like the Transformer babies that were housing human babies that Thomas was always confused about.
I don't know. I don't know nothing about that. Nope.
But anyway, I just so confused. I was like, this was his goal in the.
Well, see, that's what I'm telling you. That's not. Well, one, he wants a Kryptonian. He doesn't want just the human.
Yeah.
And two, he just wants his DNA. He doesn't want to become organic. It wouldn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for him to become organic because then he's just like, you'll die.
Well, he would have been half and half. He would have been half techno, half organic. He needed some biological structure to him, is what he wanted, to be able to evolve like a living creature.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Richie's not Kryptonian, so that's
so he's just like, I'll just control you and then get in my body. So because I don't want to leave your body, I guess. But this unit doesn't want to evolve. But we do have the return of the Superman Batman plot of build body, get ship, escape Earth, which we've seen twice before. Only this time, escaping isn't the priority. It's digitize the planet as if this is the movie Tron. He just starts shooting laser beams at houses and they go away, and I'm like, oh my god, is what he's doing?
Brainiac is so weird, man. He's such a disappointing villain. He could be so much more.
They use him so much.
Exactly. Why do they use him so much? Probably because he has so much potential, but they never do anything interesting with it.
I thought the last one was interesting, where he wanted to evolve and be like this hybrid. They should have made him succeed and then die or something. They should have made him into this super being. Oh my god, I just realized that's what happens in the final Justice League episode. But the opposite. Because in the very last 2 episodes of Justice League, or last episode, they hint that Brainiac is being rebuilt because he talks to Lex Luthor in his brain all the time. So Lex is always like, oh yeah, I gotta rebuild Brainiac and become Brainiac Luthor, a hybrid being. And he's always talking to Brainiac almost every other episode of Unlimited. And by the time he goes to where Brainiac was destroyed in Justice League, in that battle in his asteroid, instead they revive Darkseid, who becomes Super Darkseid because he's now got all of Brainiac's tech and everything in his body, but Darkseid is in control. So it's like a huge fake out. You think Brainiac's going to return, but instead it's Darkseid, or Super Darkseid.
Just make a cartoon about Brainiac altogether. Just all about Brainiac somehow. Like, just make him the main villain in some series, some superhero. Hawkgirl versus Brainiac, and that's the show. I mean, he's got to do something until 2979, where he fights with Superman again, far in the future.
And where apparently he didn't try to evolve those next thousands of years and just gave up on it.
Yeah. He just does the same things in the future. Man.
Yeah.
Nothing's a spoiler about him.
What kind of evolved creature stands there and goes, ha, I'm going to talk about destroying this remote that can destroy me instead of actually destroying it, because if I do that, the bad guys will win and the episode will be over. And then Static just shoots it with an electric blast. And this time is the hero of the episode. I didn't really have any notes for that. Do you guys have anything else for Static Shock 1 and 2? Just more comedic and had a lot more, rap music in it and techno-ish things.
Yeah, a lot of music in that. What was up with that? That made it more interesting to watch, I think, just because it Just had a lot of sounds and stuff going on.
That's what I have is, well, other than, is he okay? Green Lantern was hit with Hawk Girl's spiked mace. He's probably not okay, has brain damage and bludgeoning damage from
Oh God, come
internal
on.
bleeding. But in the second episode, they all get mind controlled, all the Justice League by Brainiac, and Static Shock has to fight them all one by one to burn their electric discs off. And when he fights Flash, we get a song called Step by Step. And I'm like, oh my God, seriously? It just kind of made me cringe because, this is the song you choose for Flash. Though I did think it was funny that we got an electronic version of the Batman theme when he's fighting Batman.
I didn't hear that. It just must have like been, I'm
Checked
conditioned to already ignore it or something.
That was it. I enjoyed him. I just thought it was like, tons of music, a lot more comedy in the Static Shock episode.
There's like 2 tropes in this episode that I need to look up and figure out.
Oh.
There has to be a name for it. Because one is at the very beginning of this whole Brainiac multi-part series is that the Justice League are well aware of Brainiac's capabilities. Why would they keep him in a containment that requires a backup power source that doesn't come on immediately or is standalone? Like, something could happen. If you lose power, Brainiac's going to get free and run amok in your ship. And it happened.
Shaking my head.
Well, I think this is also Chekhov's gun. They're purposely referencing Brainiac in the beginning, and he's going to be released as soon as they're doing that in the beginning.
I mean, Chekhov's a missile. I mean, like, they jump right into it. It's like, it's like, oh, they talk about how we have him in this thing, and then here comes this solar flare thing immediately to mess up everything.
You know how everyone's like, you watch an episode about, hey man, I created this shrink ray. Oh, that's cool. 15 minutes later, oh my God, the giant monster is here. What are we going to do? Hey, character A, what about that shrink gun you made at the beginning of the episode? That's right.
At least though, you have some time to forget so that it can kind of make sense. Oh, yeah, that's right. You don't get that. They immediately go into, like, he's free. We got him locked up, and now we're out of power immediately.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, there has to be a trope for where, I don't know, characters where characters like guest star on somebody else's show, and that hero or main character of that show beats them, like outwits them or outpowers them and just defeats them. Because Static Shock beating the Justice League by himself, well, that makes no sense. But it's his show, so he's better than them because it's his show.
Well, no, they're mind controlled,
exactly.
So they're not up to their mental standards. So they're just acting like robots. So they're slightly easier to beat up, right?
I don't know. No, I don't want to believe that. Like,
I've seen that on most crossovers.
And
the star of the show always wins.
They're mind controlled by Brainiac. He knows what they are capable of because he fought them multiple times too. Probably the worst one is just that the fact that Flash is chasing after him and he can't catch up with him. Like,
you know what that reminds me of? When the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were mind controlled to fight the Power Rangers, and the Power Rangers beat them up because it was the Power Rangers episode.
Oh, it was the Power Rangers show, so they got the power boost.
Yeah, because when you're mind controlled, you act really dumb and really stupid. They're like, to hear a command that says "get them" and you walk slowly toward them, as opposed to if Superman was really in control, he'd just been like, "Laser blast, you're dead now." Which, if I recall, Superman isn't in this episode, and Flash isn't in the Dark Side episode. Well, you know what? If you went to Static Shock under TV tropes, this episode might even have all those out there if each episode has its own trope thing, or it might just be a trope by the show instead of each episode.
Yep, I'll check that out.
So what did you think of these episodes, Charlie?
I found them enjoyable, though. The one thing that's weird is I think I must have stopped watching Static Shock before Richie became a hero. Like, because I really don't remember that aspect. Because before he was just a guy, just a kid who was like following around Static. On Cardcaptor Sakura, her buddy just follows her around with the camera, basically. But that was what I remember about Static Shock. That Richie was he was barely a sidekick. He hardly ever helped. He was just there.
Yeah, he was the guy on the radio helping him out
Yeah.
when he's like, quick, I'm finding somebody with X powers mixed with X powers. And he's like, oh yeah, go to the whatever, building and electrocute him with, something. I don't know. But like, he was
Yep.
always like the guy that helps because the hero isn't intelligent. So he needs an intelligent person to talk to.
But I don't know what season he actually got his own little superhero.
It was season 3.
costume and
I
stuff.
think it's the premiere
Okay.
of the season 3 episode because he finds out that he is one of the Bang babies that got superpowers, only his is just mental, and that's why he's been able to build all this high-tech stuff the last 2 seasons and not realized it.
Okay.
Because he couldn't do
But I
that
missed
before.
that. I didn't get to see this season at all. It eluded me somehow. I don't even know how I got to see the first season. I don't know where I had the time for it. Go figure. I was in college and I usually didn't watch cartoons at all. I had a lot of other stuff to do.
I'm surprised the show had 4 seasons. I guess it wasn't successful, but it was popular enough. I mean, 4 seasons is a pretty big deal. Like for any
Decent.
cartoon, American produced cartoon.
That was a decent size.
What would you think of these 2 episodes? They're watching them back to back with the serious episodes.
They're fine. They're fine. I never really was into Static Shock. I like him as a character, and I like seeing him in Justice League. That appears at like the very end.
Yeah,
I think at the very end.
The time travel episode.
Yeah, I think that's cool. Like Static Shock is a cool hero, man. He is extremely capable.
Sad Thomas. I loved Static Shock when it first came out. I mean, I thought it was just so different and so cool. I liked Meteor Man, which was a movie before then.
Yeah, that's
Robert
a great
Townsend.
movie. That's a great movie.
It wasn't a great movie.
Come
but
on now.
That was what I kind of grew up on. Like I watched stuff like that.
Right.
And then Static Shock was kind of like, wow, this is like Meteor Man. This is just what I've been waiting for. Besides Hammerman, there's Hammerman, but wasn't as heroic as
I
all
wanted
that.
to like it, but his rogues gallery was just kind of like dorky and boring.
Like that guy
That's
with the
kind of
pants at the beginning with the fire guy. He shows up all the time, and I'm like, please just
yeah.
stop using him.
They were all boring, but
Yeah.
but if he had more interesting villains, I probably would have watched it because they also seem to have more interesting stories. Like
Yeah.
we kind of outside the podcast, we were kind of talking about that episode with the gun or with Richie's dad being like a racist in the
God,
show.
yeah.
Like an actual, they made that a story point about him being a racist.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you cut out there.
Richie's dad is a racist in the show, as in like they actually wrote that as part of his character. There's a story about his dad saying racist stuff to Static, to Virgil, essentially.
Yeah, he's like, you know how those people are, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, so like there's stuff there that I don't know. It makes me think like it probably is a good show. I just wish it had more. It was more complete.
Oh, he was supposed to get a Game Boy Advance game, but it was canceled. So that he didn't get any video games based on his show. I'm surprised Static doesn't show up in any of the DC Universe shows like Flash or Arrow or even Black Lightning, even though I know that's a separate universe. Was a separate universe because they use so many other heroes and villains. Maybe they were thinking about making him into a movie or something. I don't know, but they just never use him in all the hundreds of episodes they've done with the DC Universe shows.
They made a Static Shock movie.
Most of the reason they would never have someone show up on the TV show is because they wanted to use him in a movie. Maybe he never was intended anyway, and people just weren't thinking about him.
It's like one Disney could jump on because it's kind of teen oriented versus being the grown up superhero.
Well, Warner Brothers owns DC Comics, so it would have to be a Warner Brothers show.
Ooh, take that, Disney.
Once you own something, you don't get rid of it or sell it off, even though I think someone just did that recently, actually, for the first time.
Yeah. I don't like that Disney owns too much stuff that I used to like. Like, they can't own Lucasfilm stuff.
Yeah, where's my Guardians of the Galaxy Star Wars crossover now, guys? Come on, you're missing out. Where's
And
that
they
TV
screwed
show?
up they screwed up Willow. Like Willow apparently wasn't good,
God.
even though they got all the same people back. How do you get all the same people back? Even have Val Kilmer somehow act, I don't know.
It was
maybe
canceled
they used
after
AI.
one season.
Yeah, I'm so sad. I didn't even
was
get to
gonna-
watch it, but how could it be bad? They had all the real people. Yeah.
Are you saying something?
exactly.
Sorry, you seem to cut off.
But I'm just upset that Disney would take such a franchise that could have been successful and ruin it. But I knew they'd do it.
Yeah.
They'll do it to Star Wars too. Just mark my
Already
words.
did it to Star Wars. It was like half the shows they make. So
Like the old Star Wars movies in the 90s that were not good. That came after the other ones.
we only have one more Brainiac episode where he comes up in a massive 4-part finale to Justice League, and that's the last we'll ever see of Brainiac again. Because, as I mentioned before, everything in Season 2 is just meant to trick you for Darkseid's return. We hope you've enjoyed us ranting and talking about Brainiac on Justice League stuff and Static Shock stuff. Does anybody have any last-minute things for Static Shock or Brainiac?
Nope.
Nada.
Okay. All right. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this often. God, what's the word for it? Anyway, this different look at another robot on another show. Signing off. This is Sean.
Charlie.
And Thomas.
To help the podcast, you can join my Patreon at Realms of Flux, Sean Murphy. You can also check out Geekade's Patreon, which has early access podcasts where you can listen to our podcast early, as well as some other podcasts you might be interested in. Thank you.